Alright guys, thought we'd try this a little different. I'd like to talk about Neanderthals and their art. Just quickly, to compare Neanderthals. Immediate visual differences we can tell is the general bulky rigidity of the frame of the body, but we see difference in the ribs, the hips and the skull. The bottom line, guys, the latest up-to-date information using genome studies shows that it isn't quite as linear as they once have you believe, but we can't just disregard all this Neanderthal stuff. The latest up-to-date information shows that humans don't come from Neanderthals who come from something before. Humans and Neanderthals share a common ancestor. There's of course the Denisovans, which, as we can see here, sprout off from the Neanderthals. I believe maybe there's a missing link here, and these are the Beni Elohim, the sons of the Elohim, and maybe even the fallen possessed them at first. Beni, sons of Elohim. So, the hands, guys. A lot of you will be familiar with the hands. The hand imprint. This is a signature of the Neanderthals. We see there are red, black and white hands, guys. All three colours associated with race, species, breeds, tribes and everything everybody argues about, guys. But even these guys, they had many colours, just like Joseph's coat. Black, red and white. We find these clusters all over. Quite dramatic, really, if you take a minute to ponder. The hands, okay? Now something interesting we find amongst these handprints, these lizard type reptilian prints. Now it's said, and it's pretty obvious, that they've got some type of lizard, Komodo dragon, iguana type thing, cut off the arms and used it to make these prints. But why would they put the reptilian prints in with the hands? And another thing we notice amongst the hands is mutilation. In this case we see a very short thumb and twisted, contorted digits. Is this a punishment? Maybe this guy was a rapist, I'm just surmising. But we notice the damaged hands. Here we can see each hand has a missing digit. Was this guy a thief? I don't know. I certainly believe that all stuff comes from this. So the art that I want to jump straight in and look at comes from France and Spain. There's 3 places in Spain and the famous Lascaux grotto. Alright guys? Now Lascaux, it's not a cave or grotto that you imagine with an entrance. It was buried, like seriously buried, guys. It was certainly antediluvian, and I believe it was pre the fall of Eden, which I label the Younger Dryas. It was certainly buried. And when I say they dug it, I mean they had to dig to it. Once they'd found the opening, they had to dig. And then, because of nature, moisture, they had to reseal it. So when you go to visit Lascaux, you're actually visiting what they call Lascaux 2. And this is like a complex, pretty much like Valley of the Kings, with little caves that have been renovated, and the artwork from Lascaux has been replicated. So what you're going to look at, guys, is not actually the Lascaux caves. When you go and look, it's all replicas. But it looks phenomenal all the same. Now Lascaux, this is not your average scrolling on the wall. This stuff is amazing if you have an artistic eye. To say that these Neanderthal people were dumb, primitive, or just, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We see a style. Picasso went to visit this Lascaux cave, and when he came out, the media were waiting for him. He was quite a celebrity back in his day. He said, what his comments were is, in 30,000 years, we've learned absolutely nothing. Meaning that this was on par to anything any master had produced throughout history. And you can see that, guys. I'd like to point out the dots, and the dots are not in the animals. And you know that I've said before, my theory is that the dots are spirit or spiritual, and later definitely represent the Legion. Now in the Lascaux caves we see animals. Animals are a major theme in all of this and religion, guys. For the fallen inhabited the... So it is said that the fallen inhabited the animals before they went into man. And certain animals are part of the story, and certain animals are ritualistic. And here we have a stag. More of Lascaux. It is really beautiful, and this is a common, or half of a common image. You can see a horse and what looks to be a bull, but it's like an auroch. It's called an auroch, guys. The full picture, even more. These are the images what they like to push, and what they... When you think of Lascaux, this is what springs to mind. We find hands en masse at Lascaux. This, guys, is the image I want to show you and talk about in Lascaux. It's not a secret, but it's certainly not as common as all the frescoes of the animals. It's half of a bigger piece. They only focus really, when you do see this image, on the objects on the right. But on the left, we can clearly see a rhino. A horned rhino with his tail in the air, and he's passing wind these 6 black dots. But over here, guys, over here we can see this figure, this humanoid figure, who is actually, we can see a beak. He is a birdman. He is the birdman. And he is excited. He is erect. And we can notice his posture on the 45-degree. This is how, in the ancient petroglyphs and cave paintings, this is how they showed death, on the 45. And we see this bull. Now, we know here, guys, that the bull, when we're talking symbology, the bull represents Baal. He has many identities and many representations, but the bull is the bull of his mother. It is Baal. And this is the Horus. We see conveniently that the horns are just at the right location for the head. We see the bull is speared. They have pierced the bull. We see this, what some people say is his guts, but I think that this is an Ouroboros with a smaller serpent inside it, guys, and I'll explain this in a minute. But over here we have his rod, and his rod is no longer in his hand. This staff, at the bottom, look, we can see more detail, and it's kind of like a wasp, but it reminds me of the Bennu bird. I believe, guys, that this in Lascaux is Neanderthal prophecy. Prophecy, guys. Ancient prophecy of the Horus, who is the hand and rib genetic cross, the world king possessed by the spirit of Baal, the bull, the golden cow. I believe, guys, in Lascaux, this is ancient Neanderthal prophecy. We see more of these hands that are mutilated with short fingers, but over here we see this hand silhouette is being grasped by a rather strangly second hand grabbing him, and it's just like we see in the video I've just made, the last shot of the Highlander video, where he gets possessed and the entity goes in his face and a hand grabs his wrist. So the places in Spain, guys, is Cantabria, and this is the Altimara cave in Spain, and the third one is I forget its name, guys. It's just next to Magaluf, I do believe. Now this image, I don't know what this image is, but it is part of the Altimara cave art, so I want to include it. It's going to be relevant and it's going to have meaning. Comment, guys, about it. What do you think it is? At the end of the video, come back to this. In the Altimara caves, we see what they call the fish, which is two kissing fish. Excuse me, guys. But it seems, and they actually say that all this artwork is symbolic and it all has meaning, and they admit that it's not to be taken at face value, and now they're saying it's probably spiritual or scientific meanings. This is again something a lot of us have always thought. This reminds me, it conjures up images of the helix, the double helix, the strands. This I believe is relative to the fish, when you see the symbol of the fish. And up here, look, we have an empty third. Is this just a coincidence with the things that I speak about? Maybe. In the Altimara caves, we find the hands, and we see the circle, and the first representation I found of Neanderthal, guaranteed Neanderthal imagery with hands of the zigzag serpent. And then we see these shadow creatures, animals, but these could have been added later, guys. Who knows? We'll cover the times later. We also see the same spectacular, beautiful style artwork. Again, guys, these guys were no joke. They were not stupid cavemen that bashed each other on the heads. And it is certainly all symbolic. Now, in this scene we see lots of bulls, aurochs, seem to be skittled by this figure down here, which is a boar. Now again, this is a recurring theme in the Neolithic culture and paganism right the way through. Some of you guys might be familiar with the concept of the hunt. The hunt. Now, the hunt does include hunting, capturing and killing animals. But the main concept of the hunt, the last time I've seen it represented best is in Game of Thrones. They love to put this stuff in the media, as we know, guys. Now, Game of Thrones, you might remember Ramsay Bolton. He was a bit of a crazy character, with a psycho streak. What he did is he used to get his prisoners and torture them, and then he'd take them out, and they'd believe they were being released. And he'd release them and wait a certain time, and then he'd hunt them down. This is the root of the meaning of the hunt, and I believe it's part of the ritual before the sacrifice to release to hunt the guy, to hunt the victim. And that is the meaning, the true meaning of the hunt. And here we can see the hunt represented in the Altamara caves. There is what they call the world's first attempt at writing. I'm not going to try, guys, and say I have any clue what this says. I have no idea. But I do think these two things here, look, they remind me of Mr. Wilson of Castaway, the ball, the handprint, Mr. Wilson, the face silhouette with the Phoenician headdress. This is another picture to remind you, just to keep this in mind. We find the hands in the Altamara cave, but this is the reason for the visit to this cave, guys. They say that this is the oldest artwork in history. This piece is apparently the oldest. We can see a lot of it is missing down at the bottom. Maybe even the columns are broken away. Over here we can see, I've got close-up pictures of these guys. I'm going to go to them in a minute. This is the reason we're here. We can see the horse, a horse-like head with two sticks made of spots. We see the X, the cross. Over here, I don't really know what this is, guys. Here we have some sort of shadowy figure with a head and its arms. It's hard to make out and it isn't very clear. But this right here, guys, this is what I want to pay attention to. We see the horse close up, and these are the two sticks made of spots. And also we have this. But what I want to talk about is this, guys. We see this square, rectangular, oblong, box type thing. And it is actually 3 sections. There's a section that's worn away a little but can still be seen in better images. And it goes up here, there's 3 sections. And in the top and the bottom section, there's a picture of an animal. This seems to be 2 columns, 2 areas, 2 blocks, 2 pillars maybe, with animals represented on them. And this, to me, guys, taking into account that what we've seen already, that this artistic capability of these people, this looks to me like a hand, but not just any old hand. If you've seen the iPet Goat, the Puppet Master, the Devil's Hand, this is what, and his thumb and the fingers coming down and resting on this, whatever it is. But if we draw our attention here, guys, what can we see here? I believe, guys, that what we see here is a man on his knees with his head bowed low and his hands, arms out and his hands clenched as if he was in prayer, and something projecting from his groin area. And behind him it seems we have a figure, a crowned figure, holding him by the shoulder, and coming out is this thing here, this line, and it goes out into this. Now, some people on other channels would advise you to listen to the narratives and to look at the archaeological drawings instead of looking at the pictures and images of reliefs and art yourself. Here is an official archaeologist drawing of the relief we've just looked at the Altamara cave. What I'm calling a thumb is missing off this picture, and this isn't anything really like. It's very similar, but it's not the same, guys. I believe this shows the ritualistic sacrifice in the Altamara cave in Spain. Also in the Altamara cave we have this, which is kind of unclear and seems to be damaged, but I'll explain in a moment how I believe this again is the Ouroboros with a smaller juvenile serpent inside it. So, if we go down to the cave that I can't remember the name of, near Magaluf, and we're confronted with this interesting figure. Now, I don't know if you can make this out, guys, but I find this very interesting. At first glance, this looks in the centre to be the Mr. Wilson figure. We see this crown type thing and the face and the long square nose and the helmet. But when we look closer, that's just pareidolia. That is looking at what interpretive views. What we can really see is three stripes or three pillars or three columns, and across the middle is intersected by a crossbar, kind of forming a T in the middle pillar. And then, guys, if you look, coming out of each side is this bar. There's one here and there's one down here, and they each have these lines coming off the top and bottom. The bottom here and the top here, guys, you see. Now if we look to the side, there's this thing which is the same at the other side, but if we look at this side, these bars are connected. So this, whatever it is and whatever it means, this is connected. And this bar with these up and down lines is inside what we'll call now the Joe Biden thing. You know the thing. Well, this is connected to the thing, and this is not connected to the thing. I do believe that this is a subliminal face. I believe it's the mask, but I believe it means something much deeper that we've yet to find out. But the reason that I've included this is because here, down here, we can see the serpent, Ouroboros. Here we see his eye and his head, getting his tail, and inside we see a smaller serpent, a juvenile serpent, forming the juvenile in the Ouroboros. And then we see this black around it, kind of making it look like an eye on another level. Here's a close-up, guys. Notice how good they are at the art. It's a perfect, like a tape ribbon. It's flat. Excuse me. Here's a picture of the same image, guys, with a bit more, but it's not a very good image. I just thought I'd include it. So guys, in 3 caves we have quite some information from the Neanderthals, from the hands, guys. We have what I believe is the interpretation of the ritualistic sacrifice to release the Karo Kundalini spirit, which is really the fallen demonic entity. I believe that is what this shows. This is, at one layer, I believe this is the possession, the coming together of the 3 aspects, and the possession of the spirit. We see the Ouroboros in one of its earliest uses. We see the hands and the reptilian hands and the colours of red, white and black. And we see this, guys, which I certainly believe in Lascaux, is prophecy, Neanderthal prophecy of the world king, the once and future king, the Horus, possessed by the spirit of Baal. Now, it's pointless saying ask the experts, because we know about these experts here, don't we, guys? Dr. Chris Standish, the Department of Archaeology, the University of Southampton. Well, we've got your number, guys. Look over here. This is an advert taken from the website at Lascaux. And this is a Ouroboros image I've used and showed you a few times before, guys. This Aborigine. You can see how it swoops round and comes up, and the boy in the middle. It's just the same thing, guys. And then, maybe on a subliminal level, maybe intentional, we start to get Photoshop to enhance the shadow of the kid and black out here. We'll come round here and do the same. Can you see the snake's head open? The serpent's mouth wide open, guys. The Ouroboros carrying the boy. This is taken from the website, an advert for Lascaux. Right, guys. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to throw in here, but to keep in with the theme, glyphs and petroglyphs. You might be familiar with Jebel el-Lawz, which many of us believe is the location, the real Mount Sinai. Jebel el-Lawz was discovered a while ago by a family, a couple with their children in Saudi Arabia, and they informed a man called Ron Wyatt that some of you might be familiar with. And Ron and his family went and they followed the scripture and they followed the instructions of the family, and they went on quite a journey and they documented it. And you can see the path of the Exodus, the scriptural path of the Exodus. That's nowhere near or like what the narrative Mount Sinai is. The crossing of the Yom Suf, the Red Sea, the Nueva Beach. They found the pillars erected by Solomon to commemorate that spot. They found the Midian. They found all sorts, guys, and it led to this, which pretty much checks out to be the real legit Mount Sinai. And it's actually in Saudi Arabia, as some of you might know. It's called Jebel el-Lawz. There's lots of interesting things around this site. This is supposedly, and I believe it to be true, the cave of Elijah. And over here they found this structure which they believe to be the altar of the golden calf, what the golden calf sat on. Now, 2 reasons why I've included this, guys. The first is we can find at the foot of the mountain glyphs. And I want to show you that not all glyphs are the same. And the one reason why they fall on the timeline is because they find a glyph and they put it at the beginning of time. And then, as in their mind things advance, time advances. But they're forgetting cataclysmic resets, guys. And scripture tells us there's 2. The fall of Eden, which I think they're writing off as the Younger Dryas, and the flood of Noah. Well, after these things, the flood of Noah, it was like a reset and we were thrown back into the Stone Age. But before this period, the post-Diluvian, after the flood times, before that, they were more advanced. So that's one reason why they struggle with the timeline. Now, these glyphs, they're very peculiar and important. To show what's believed to be a warning sign given by Moses, instructed by God, to mark perimeter at the base of Mount Sinai, and anybody that steps foot on the mountain will be shot on sight. And we find these glyphs at the foot of the mountain. So it shows the use of glyphs, but it shows that the difference between the pictures and art we've talked about and these is thousands of years, with an advanced culture in between. Not advanced like lasers, like some people would have you believe. Now what's really interesting, guys, is these carvings, glyphs, on what's said to be the altar for the golden calf. And one of the reasons that that was suggested is because of these glyphs, and on them we see lots and lots of cow, bull carvings, and we see a bowman and some goats, but big calf cows. And I also wanted to include, they found these what they call dancing people, but they look like the squatter man with the lump at the bottom. I believe that something came over the children of Israel while Moses was up the mountain. The legion, the squatter man, men at this point, for we are many after the flood. And the squatter man squatted in the children of Israel and gave them unctions to build the golden calf, just like they remembered from Egypt, who is the sun god. And this is what they did. And the reason, apart from the glyphs and the dates, I wanted to bring to awareness this site. Some of you might be aware of a place called Neom. It's MBS, Mohammed bin excuse me, guys. MBS. He's proposed to build the city of Neom, the city of robots. Some of you might be aware of Neom. They're calling it the Line, a long linear city straight from the sea, the Red Sea, straight through the desert. One of the new wonders for the world, the Line. Well, the reason I'm bringing this to your attention, guys, is because this is going to go straight through the area they believe is the Mount Sinai, the Jebel El-Lawz. They claim to have found the split rock of Horeb, all of this stuff, guys, and they're going to build this New World Order city straight through it. I don't know if they're going to preserve it or if it's going to be inside Neom or what, guys. But it's the same site, the same location as what I've just talked about. The Line, the mirrored city, the wall, the real wall. So guys, thanks for your time. Please contemplate the things that I've shared. May Yeshua bless us all.